name is Eleanor Goldfield, and I'm here to teach you how to sing anywhere. I was classically trained from the age of 5. I started singing opera, and then when I was a teenager, I started doing exclusively rock and roll, pushed all of my opera training to the side, and just a few years ago, I realized that the two could coexist very well and actually help each other turn my voice into something far better than it had been just in one of those groups exclusively. So that's what I teach my students, that's what I personally use for my own practice, and that's what I'm going to share with you. So let's get started. Video 1, I'm going to talk about your instrument, which is your body, and that can be a blessing and a curse. Basically, being that it's a part of your body, you have to be very mindful of how you treat your body. And starting with the vocal cords are 2 membranes stretched over your larynx, and they're closed when you hold your breath, open when you breathe, and they vibrate when you sing or talk. And some nerd trivia for you. If you hit a perfect A above middle C, then your vocal cords will be vibrating exactly 440 times per second. And if you think of it in that way, if you've ever been to an orchestra or philharmonic, they tune to A above middle C, which is 440 cycles per second. So if you think of it that way, your voice really is capable of being an instrument. You just have to make sure that you care for it the same way that somebody in a philharmonic would take care of their violin or their flute or what have you. So in that same vein, let's talk about what you put into your body. Food, drink. If you smoke, I don't want to sound like a Jewish mother, but stop. It's terrible for your entire instrument. In terms of what to eat and drink, think hydrating. Unfortunately, coffee, I know all of us enjoy coffee, but it's not good for your vocal cords. It has a very drying effect. So if you don't want to totally forego your cup of coffee, which I can't do anyway, just have it a few hours before you sing and get to know how it affects your vocal cords before you start drinking it regularly before you sing. Also, just think things in general, such as fruits and vegetables are very moisturizing for your vocal cords. Even things like meat and grains actually have moisture in them already. Natural foods tend to have moisture built in. It's the artificial kind of man-made substances that are very questionable. So you can even be your own guinea pig and try different things out. Just to give you a little cheat sheet, flaxseed and flaxseed oil are phenomenal for your voice. I take 2 flaxseed oil pills at the beginning of every day, and they do wonders. You'll notice difference in no time. They have a very hydrating effect on your vocal cords. Also, for some reason, I don't know why, but green apples, not red ones, just green apples, are very, very good for your vocal cords. They add a crispness and a clearness to your vocal cords that I've never seen anywhere else. So if you're having some phlegm issues, or if you're just not getting your voice where you want it, have a green apple. I always have some on hand. Also, honey and tea. Certain kinds of tea can be more drying than others. Green tea tends to be a bit more drying. White tea, the younger teas, tend to be a bit more hydrating, particularly if you put honey with it. You could also just take a spoonful of honey. That'll lubricate your vocal cords as well. Dairy products, unfortunately, are not good for you. But these days there are so many substitutes, rice milk, almond milk, soy milk, that don't have that phlegmy effect on your vocal cords. So you can still have your cereal and put milk in your coffee or whatever without having to forego the whole dairy idea. So that's basically a short idea of what to put in your body and how it affects your body. There are hundreds of more examples, but like I said, be your own guinea pig and try and figure out what works for you and what doesn't. Everybody's instrument is different, and that's another thing that's kind of a blessing and kind of a curse. You can't compare with a friend. Like guitarists can say, hey, I have the same guitar as you. You will never have the same instrument as anyone. So what I'm telling you are guidelines. They work overall the same way. But again, you might be the person that can drink tons of coffee and have no problem whatsoever. So test things out and see where you end up. But for everybody, regardless of whether you sing or not, you should drink plenty of water every day just to hydrate your entire system. So that's a very, very good idea. And then moving on to the rest of your system, your diaphragm, which is where the power comes from, the breath. I see a lot of people when they first come to me, the first thing I ask them to do is breathe. And it might sound silly, but it really is, it's the beginning of sound, is what pushes that sound out. So the diaphragm, and I'll turn to the side so you can see, when you breathe in, you shouldn't suck in. It should be, and it sounds counterintuitive, but the way that you should be breathing is when you breathe in, your diaphragm should expand because it's expanding with air. So you should actually be able to feel if you put your hand on your stomach and you breathe in, you should feel your stomach actually push out against your hand. And so that's an exercise that you can do at home. And even in front of the mirror, just hold your hand on your stomach and breathe in and out. When you breathe in, feel and see how your stomach pushes against your hand. And when you breathe out, feel and see how your stomach recedes. That's the basis of all song, of all singing, is your diaphragm. And then, of course, moving into your lungs, the way you breathe is paramount. I see a lot of singers do this. That's so terrible. What you're doing there is you're pinching and you're adding tension to your instrument, your body, which not only contracts your body and makes you mentally stiff as well, it contracts your vocal cords by doing this, because you're putting pressure on your neck, which houses your vocal cords. So you never want to pinch your shoulders. You always want to feel very relaxed and straight. If you want to do some yoga to get there, that's totally fine, but just imagine that you have a string, and this is the opera training. Imagine that you have a string that's pulling from the very center of the top of your head and pulling you up. And you feel very light and you feel very straight. That's how you should start by singing every time you practice, is make sure that you're standing very straight. Another trick is to go over to a wall and plant your body flat against the wall, and then step away from the wall and try and feel that same placement. That's how you should be standing. Your posture should be very, very straight and even so that you can get the most from your instrument. So pinching is very bad. You should try and take a deep breath at the beginning of every phrase. And that means that, let's say you have a verse phrase. You want to take a deep breath in that guitar solo area or whatever, so that you can have enough breath to last you. Sometimes, however, you won't. There are a lot of singers that like to pepper words throughout an entire song. They will employ shallow breathing. And shallow breathing is not this. Shallow breathing just means quick breaths. Same idea though. Instead of going, you go, and I don't know if you can hear that, but basically I'm very quickly breathing in and out. And it's the same concept. You'll never see me do this. But instead of taking longer amounts of time to breathe in, you'll go, and that way you have breath between two words or between a very quick turnaround of a verse and a chorus or what have you. And that's fine. As long as you're not pinching your shoulders, then shallow breathing is perfectly fine, because unless you're singing a really slow lullaby, you won't have the ability to always breathe deep and long. So that's the breathing section here. And another trick that you can actually employ is laying down on the floor. I'm not going to show you, but laying down on the floor and putting a book on your stomach. And that will really be very obvious, especially if it's a relatively heavy book. Don't hurt yourself, but like a dictionary or maybe not an atlas, but something relatively heavy, a Harry Potter book. Put it on your stomach and then just lay there and feel yourself breathing in and out. And you will feel it pushing against the book, and that'll do wonders for you as well if you're having trouble just getting that whole breathing thing down. So that's basically a rundown of your instrument. And you have to think of it as working out. If you're trying to strengthen a certain muscle group, you have to work out, and then at a certain point it becomes maintenance. It's the same thing with your vocal cords. They're a muscle. They need to be worked out, and that's what we're going to be doing here. But the other thing to remember, and I'll get to that later in the last video, it's mostly mental. You can push yourself through anything as long as you think that you can. So if it gets frustrating, if you can't give up the coffee, you don't think that you can, if you just try and think of it as a mental challenge, because again, blessing and a curse, your instrument is your body. So let's move on to the second video where we're actually going to start singing some vocal exercises. Again, my name is Eleanor Goldfield, and this has been Introduction to Your Voice on Sing Anywhere.